Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Let Fear Bounce. I am Kim Langling, your fearless leader today on Let Fear Bounce. I want to thank you for spending some of your precious time with myself and my special guest today, Mark Morton. He's coming to us from Canada today, folks. He is an award-winning author, a language lover, and culinary wordsmith. His books include Cupboard Love, a dictionary of culinary curiosities, nominated for a Julia Child Award, and The End, Closing Words for a Millennium, which won the Alexander Isbister Award. He's written for Gastronomica, shared over 100 columns on CBC Radio, and holds a PhD in 16th century literature. That is so cool. But beyond the books and academia, Mark and his wife Melanie, also an author, have an incredible story of their own as they adopted four older children. And in Mark's words, the hardest thing we've ever done. But it worked out thanks to our steadfast hope,
Yep.
even in times of despair. They now share their lively home with those four kids, three dogs, a rabbit, and not quite enough time, but they still make it work. Mark, welcome to
Hi.
Let Fear
Hi.
Bounce.
Thanks, Kim. I'm really, really glad to be here.
Now, I've been excited to chat with you because, well, I don't think I've ever talked to a 16th century literature. Are you a professor?
I used to be, and now I teach professors how to teach better.
Oh, share a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, and this is changing over the past 15, 20 years, but I mean, it used to be that people who became professors, they got their PhD, but they had almost no training in how to teach. They were just thrown in, they were subject experts, and they were expected to know how to teach. And some could do that, and some weren't so good at it. And so teaching centers like the one where I work at the University of Waterloo, they've arisen, they've emerged over the past couple of decades. And yeah, their goal is to help instructors teach as effectively and I guess efficiently as possible because professors like everybody are short on time. So they want tactics for teaching as effectively and efficiently as possible.
I think that's awesome because
Hmm.
I'm not in that realm of academia, nor have I ever been.
Hmm.
Um, I went into the military after high school, so I
Yeah.
didn't even, go to college. But I didn't realize that there was something, what you're providing, that was available.
Some people are really pulled towards whatever their research topic is. They love
Mhm.
research and maybe it's like, oh, I've got to teach as well. But lots of instructors, lots of professors, they love teaching. They love sharing that knowledge. And there are lots and lots of strategies for teaching well, but I think the one that is at the heart of everything is be authentic. Be your authentic self when you're teaching, because if you're trying to be somebody else, if you're trying to be all, I don't know, proper and exact and not make any mistakes, it won't work. So you just gotta be yourself, and then learn some tactics and strategies that will build upon that.
And it's to me, I am always learning. I always want to learn something new.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Always, because that's what I think makes life a little more interesting. Because
Hmm.
how boring would it be if we just did the same thing all the time every day?
I know. I love learning, and I love things like YouTube and Coursera and the Khan Academy. I mean, there's so many resources out there for learning about stuff. Just this morning, I got up pretty early, and I don't know why this occurred to me, but I thought, well, I'd been watching some documentaries about the Second World War in Europe, which I knew a fair bit about. And then it occurred to me I don't really know much about the Pacific aspect
Hmm.
of the war, the Second World War. Even though I had an uncle, he was from Canada, but at the beginning of the Second World War, he went down to the States. I think he might even have gone down to Pennsylvania, where you are, and he joined the Air Force and became a pilot. Um, but I never really knew much about that part, that side of the Second World War, except for the what ended it, the two
Right.
atomic bombs. Yeah, so I was
It's
learning about that
amazing.
this morning. Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned, YouTube. And this is just, it's along the same topic. I had to fix my kitchen sink.
Hmm.
the pipes underneath, but I
Hmm.
had no idea how to do it.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking I might have the right tools.
Yep.
So I YouTubed it and just replayed this YouTube over and
Yep.
over and over again. And by golly, I fixed the pipes under my sink.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's so great. And, I don't have to wear a tie often, but when I do, I can never remember how to do it. So I have to find the how to tie a tie video on YouTube.
Yeah,
Yep.
YouTube is something else. You can learn anything on there.
Yeah.
I've
It's
used it
it's
for
ve-
many things.
it's very different. Like I'm 61, and I grew up on a small farm in Saskatchewan. And obviously, long before the internet, and we were a pretty poor farm as well. We didn't have a lot of books. One thing we did have though was a 1921 edition of the Books of Knowledge, which was like a British encyclopedia.
Okay.
And even though it was, very, very old, I read that thing cover to cover, I think, because I had this thirst for knowledge. And my parents recognized that, and they did everything they could to provide me with resources and support to do that. I was never the kind of kid who wanted to inherit the farm and take
Mm.
over. Just would have been a disaster for me and the livestock and grains and fields.
What just wasn't your calling?
No, it wasn't.
Since you're, a 16th century professor, I don't think that farming was your calling.
No, it wasn't. But I loved
And
growing up
that's
on a farm.
okay.
I mean, I have to say this, I love growing up on a farm because it really shaped me. And I guess I would add this too. I don't know how much you know about Saskatchewan. It's basically above North Dakota. It is extremely flat, or at least the southern part is extremely flat. And I loved growing up in that landscape. Just you walk out of your house and you can see, I mean, the horizon is just there. Um, that had a real shaping influence on me. And I live in Ontario now, and it's the landscape is not like that anymore, and I really, really miss it. And I miss the weather too.
Mm.
Saskatchewan is the kind of place like North Dakota and I'm probably going to have to use Celsius here. Maybe I can convert it, but in the summers it can get up to 40 Celsius, which is I think over 100
Yes,
Fahrenheit.
yeah,
Yeah, and it can get down to 40 below Celsius, at which point it's the same thing as 40 Fahrenheit.
yeah.
So it's got these extremes. Um, and I like that too. It makes you, when you walk out into 40-degree below weather, you feel yourself somehow, you're
I
very
agree.
present to it. Yeah,
Because I too, live in a place where sometimes when you walk out in the wintertime, it hurts your face.
exactly. In your lungs, you breathe
Your
that air
eyes
in.
water, you start coughing because the cold
Hmm.
air, your lungs are like, what are you
Yeah,
doing to me? You
yep,
know?
yeah, it sure does.
Yeah, because I've often asked, especially if it's 10 below Fahrenheit here, 10 below zero, and
Hmm.
I walk out to take the dog out, and I'm like, why do I live in a place that makes my face hurt? You know?
Yeah, yeah,
But then I
but
remind myself, it's not sustained like this. We
mhm,
might have two or three, maybe a week long of
yeah,
like really, really sub-zero temperatures,
yeah,
but then it gets back to a normal, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
You just have to
Well,
remind yourself when you're in the midst of it.
yeah, and it's where I grew up. It also, I mean, we're going to be talking about hope, and growing up there in the Saskatchewan on the prairies, it grounded me in a way that, I know that it's contributed to my sense of my reliance or my trust in hope. Um, my parents were, good folk, good, simple people. And they, even like I said, even though we weren't very well off, they nonetheless adopted three kids. And
Oh.
over the course of about 40 years, they fostered another 70 kids. And some for short periods, just
Right.
a few days, some for months at a time. And I asked my mom once, and only once, I said, why did you guys do this? And the answer she gave was just so perfect and simple. She said, because there was a need. Um, and, I thought, I think maybe that had more of an impact on me than anything in my life
That's
because,
powerful.
It's powerful. And it made me think, like my credo now, I think, is we as humans are here on this planet to help each other, you know. And we can do other things along the way, but if we can help somebody else, we have to do that. And we have to let others help us too.
Yes. And that's a
Yeah.
tough one sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, it sure can be. But it's a gift as well, letting somebody else help you. It's a gift to them because people love that feeling.
Yeah, and if you deny their help, you're denying them the ability to give that gift.
Yeah, their agency and all kinds of things.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Beautiful stuff. Beautiful. Your parents sound lovely.
They were amazing people.
Yeah.
Yeah, the best people.
What a legacy that they left you, even if it was
Hmm.
just those few words your mom used to say, because there
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
and then you too, in turn, you and your wife have adopted children.
Yeah, yeah, we did. We adopted older children in two pairs. First, we adopted Brandon and Leica, and Brandon was 10, and Leica I think was 8 or 9. And then a few years, and they were siblings, and then a few years later, we adopted twins, fraternal twins, Roxana and Matthew, and they were both 8 at the time. And yeah, I think it was because of the model or the example that my
Hmm.
that my parents had that prompted us to do that. And Melanie, my wife, also has very, family friends, friends that have been part of her family as she grew up, who have adopted kids. They're now adults, of course. And one of my sisters adopted 2 children, so it was sort of in my life. And I guess, I mean, I knew Melanie and I knew when we adopted the kids, especially older kids, because older kids are in the system. Here in Canada, they're called crown wards. They become wards of the crown, meaning they are
Hmm.
taken from their birth family, and that happens for a reason. And 98% of the time, it's because the birth parents, the birth family, can't look after them, and often there's trauma and things like that. Sometimes, something catastrophic happens to the parents, and the kids become orphans. But most of the time, older kids, when they are placed for adoption, they have PTSD, and often their schooling has been very interrupted. So we knew that it was going to be a challenge, but I don't think we anticipated how much of a
Mm.
challenge it was going to be. Um, but I think even in the darkest days, I don't think we ever thought, oh, we can't do this. Sometimes horribly, sometimes um, people adopt or try to adopt children, and then it breaks down, and the children have to go back into care. And that's just awful. That's devastating for a kid. They've lost their birth parents to begin with, and somebody else comes along and says, well, we're your forever family now, and then it breaks down.
It's
It's
just
awful.
adding to their trauma.
Yeah, yeah, that actually happened to Roxana and Matthew. Um, so yeah, we knew that it was going to be difficult. We knew that they would come to us with trauma and other things. But until you're in the middle of it, you just don't know what it's going
Right.
to be. And you also don't know what resources you have. I mean, I think that's another thing that raising these kids taught both of us is having resources and what's the word I'm looking for? It's trust, it's faith, and I mean faith in the biggest sense. Just thinking, okay, this is going to be okay.
Hmm.
And sometimes, you have to say to yourself, okay, whatever this is right now, in a year or 10 years, you're not even going to remember it. You know, most things are small potatoes. They might seem big at the moment, but distance and time will help you put things into perspective, I think. That's
Yeah,
what we.
going back to when your mom said because there was a need. I don't. Did you ever watch Mr. Rogers?
A few times up in Saskatchewan, we didn't get it very clearly. It was very fuzzy. It came
Yeah, I was
from
wondering if you
Fargo,
even got it
Fargo,
up
North
there.
Dakota.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes, yeah.
I used to watch it all the time, and there was something that they always said, when there's a need, look for the helpers.
Yeah, yeah. I saw that movie with Tom Hanks, I think, and I do remember him saying something like
Pardon
that.
me.
Look for the helpers.
That was a great movie.
It was. Yeah,
And
it really
because,
was.
I grew up watching him, and
Hmm.
he actually lived down in Pittsburgh, which is just an hour and a half south of me.
Yeah, yeah.
It was kind of, kind of cool. There's like, wow, he's, within driving distance. I could have went and met him.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in Canada, the equivalent was Mr. Dress Up. Um, and he everybody in Canada my age or he was on TV for at least 20 years, maybe more,
Mr.
30
Dress
years.
Up.
And they knew who Mr. Dress Up was. Um,
How fun. Now, see, I'm going to have to look him up
yeah, yeah.
on YouTube.
On YouTube, you can watch some episodes.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And we've got to talk about your books because, I mean, where did a dictionary of culinary curiosities come from? Where did this love of food come from? Then all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to write a book about it.
Well, going back to talking about when I was growing up on the farm and not really fitting into that context, like I said, I loved reading, and we also had a old dictionary, and I loved just reading through the dictionary and learning words, and even at the back of it, it had a list of Latin phrases, and when I
Hmm.
was 5 or 6, I memorized some of the Latin phrases. So I've always loved language. I've loved learning about language. I've loved learning languages. I've loved writing. And so after I finished my PhD, um, on CBC Radio, I started this weekly thing where they would have me come in and I would talk about word origins.
Oh, how fascinating.
Yeah, yeah, because we don't really think of that. I remember when I was like maybe 10 or so, coming home from school, opening up the cupboard, and all of a sudden it hit me, cupboard. This is a board for cups. That's where it comes from, right? And
Yeah.
I'd never thought about that before. And almost all words, pantry, comes from the French word pain, for bread. It was where bread was originally kept. So almost all words have origins like that. Sometimes we can't figure them out, or there isn't a historical record. But when I started thinking about word histories and language history, I just was really pulled to it. And so a publisher approached me and said, well, why don't you write a book about word origins? I said, okay, what would be a good topic? And we thought about it. We thought, okay, well, everybody likes food. So I wrote a dictionary of word origins of food words and cooking words. And
Who'd
it
have
did quite
thunk?
well. Yeah, yeah.
I
And
think
then,
that's awesome.
that was followed up by the another one that you mentioned, the end, closing words for a millennium, which was how people at the ends of previous centuries celebrated or wrote about the end of their centuries, 1899, 1799, and so on. And then I followed that with another etymological word origin book, and this time it was about words having to do with love and sex. Um, and that was called The Lover's Tongue. And then after that, I was approached by a publisher, sort of a more academic publisher, who wanted me to write a book about food culture in 16th century England. In other words, what people ate at the time of Shakespeare. What would
Right.
Shakespeare have eaten as he was writing his plays? That sort of stuff.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And
So
then we
you
adopted,
like research as well, though.
I do.
You'd
And
have to for
yeah,
writing what you write. Yeah.
yeah, but those books were quite a while ago because then we adopted these kids, the 4 kids I was mentioning, and for basically 17 years, my wife and I had to put our writing careers, because my wife is a poet, we had to put our writing careers on hold. Uh, Everything, all of our energy went into raising these kids, and it was only a few years ago when they got old enough to be independent, that we discovered we had more time to, or we could have more time. We could recover, carve out more time to start writing again. And so that's when I wrote a novel, because I thought, well, I'm going to write fiction now instead of nonfiction. And so I wrote a book called The Headmasters, a dystopian, post-apocalyptic book for young adults. So
Okay.
that was my most recent book.
And is that published?
It is. It was published, let's see, last year, about a year ago now, and it's gotten great reviews. I mean, it's hard to. Let me start this again. With nonfiction books, it's easy to get the attention of the press, of newspapers. Like Cupboard Love, for example, you approach somebody and you say, I've written a book about the origins of food words. They're all over you. They want, because they can write a story about that.
Hmm.
But with fiction, it's much harder because it's hard to sum up, a little elevator pitch about um, what your novel is about. And so, my publisher and his marketing person, they have to work really, really hard to get attention for novels and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think folks that out there that maybe they don't write or they're always saying, "Yeah, I've always wanted to write a book." I don't I don't think they realize just what goes into getting a book out there into the world.
Yeah, it's
Because
hard.
writing the book, if you look on it, if you look back, I know for me, because I'm an author as well, if I look back, I'm
Mm.
like, the writing part was easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
you have to become a salesperson, a marketer. And
Yep.
if you're a one person show or if you're self published, indie,
Hmm.
whatever, you also have to become, the content writer, a graphic designer. If
Hmm.
you're making video trailers, you've got to do it all.
Yep. Yep.
And most folks don't know all of that stuff.
There's books on the shelves in a bookstore or online. I
YouTube,
mostly read ebooks, or on YouTube. Yeah. And we see the product, but we don't see all the rest of the iceberg below it.
right? Yes, yes. You don't see what's underneath the water where all
Yeah.
the duck's feet are just going like crazy,
Yeah. Yeah.
just trying to keep going.
I'm going to make a parallel to raising our kids again, just to go back to that, because it was kind of similar because I think all of our friends, our community, our family members, not many of them are fully aware of, what a struggle, what a challenge it was to raise these kids. They see our kids now and they're successful and, fine, handsome, beautiful young people, young adults. But again, there's this iceberg of what it took to raise them. And I think that's true of every family. Every family has challenges with their kids, whether it's medical or sometimes psychological or bullying, things like that. And other people aren't aware of it. That's why I like getting sick once in a while. If you've got really, really good health, and during the pandemic where, I never, well, always wearing masks and didn't go out as much, I didn't have a cold or a flu or anything. And I kind of lost my awareness of the fact that you might encounter somebody and they might have a terrible headache. They might be feeling really, really crappy at the moment. And so I find that after I get done with a cold or a flu or something like that, I'm more empathetic because,
Mm,
somebody cuts me off in traffic and I think, well, maybe they're not feeling well. Maybe they're in a rush for something or other. So,
yes.
we have to give each other grace, you know.
I agree. And I say the same thing all the time.
Hmm.
Or I'll be standing in line at the grocery store and someone behind me, the cashier's struggling for whatever
Hmm.
reason.
Hmm.
And person behind me be like, "Oh, I don't have time for this." Rah, rah, rah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've often just turned around and said, we have no idea what
Yeah.
might be going on in that young lady's life right now.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So, unless
Yeah.
if you're in such a rush, go to another aisle,
Yeah. Yeah.
go to another
Yeah.
line,
It's like
because
that
we
old
don't know what people are going through.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, there but for the grace of God go I. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And even if you're in traffic or something,
Hmm.
and I'll be like,
Hmm.
and I'm guilty of it, but I at
Hmm.
least catch myself now.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, is this guy, what is he doing? And then I'll be like, you know what, Kim, take a deep breath.
Yep.
I have no idea what that older gentleman's going through. Maybe he's a veteran and he's just having a bad
Sure.
day,
Sure. Sure.
you know?
And it's good for everybody, well, okay, I'll put it in these terms. It's good for me as a white male person living in Canada who had good parents. I had all of those privileges, right? And lots of people don't have that. Lots of people
Right,
come from broken homes. Lots of people, they don't live in, first world countries like Canada or the US or Australia. They live in Senegal or, the Congo, wherever there's horrible things happening right now,
right.
Syria. Um, yeah, so that's one thing that my wife and I tried to instill in our kids is they have to be aware of their sense of privilege.
And
Just
we take so much for granted,
exactly, exactly.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
so much. And we're all guilty of it.
Yeah, yeah. And the other day, here's an example of it. I was walking into a grocery store and with one of my daughters, and there was a person, and it was cold out, and there was a person sitting on the ground, and he said, "Do you have any change?" And I said, "Well, I don't have any change. I don't. I just have cards, nowadays." And I said, "But I can buy you some food if you like. What would you like?" And he said, "I would just like a drink." So I said, "Okay, I'll be right back." So I went in, and it happened to be an Asian grocery store, and I mentioned that because um, the drinks they had were kind of unusual, like tamarind and stuff with milk tea and stuff. And I thought, well, what would be a good one? I don't want to give him something that he wouldn't like. So it took me a while to get something. And then I also bought um, some buns, and we went back out, and he was gone, right?
Mm.
He had left and probably thought we weren't going to actually do it. And my daughter, who is usually so empathetic, she said, "Well, that was rude of him." And I said to her, "No, no, no. We don't know why he had to leave. We don't know why he was in that situation. Here we are coming out of a grocery store with our arms full of groceries, going back to a nice house. Um, we're the rude ones, in a way, if we're not willing to help other people." So, anyways, yeah, we have wanted our kids to be aware of it's our role as humans to help each other, to be aware of our own privileges, and yeah, just that we have
When a
to
lot of
be
times,
kind.
even if you can't personally do something to help someone, because many times we can't,
Hmm.
but you can acknowledge it.
Yeah,
You can acknowledge them as a person and let them know, you know what, I see you.
yeah,
You're not
yeah,
invisible.
yeah. That's
And
very true.
that might be the nugget of hope that they needed to make it through the rest of that day.
Yeah, yeah. And the challenge I think that Melanie and I have found, or another challenge, is also at the same time knowing what boundaries to create,
Hmm.
because you can't just keep coming back to somebody over and over and over.
Right.
At some point, and we've had to do this with a couple of our kids. We've had to say, okay, we've given you lots of chances, and now we're not going to help. You got to figure this out on your own. And that too is a gift, you know.
Hmm.
There's still a safety net under them, even if
Right.
they don't know about it.
Yes. But we all do have to have boundaries for
Yeah.
ourselves individually.
Yeah, because there's
Help,
compassion
to stay
exhaustion.
healthy for
Yep.
our own selves.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I want to jump back to words because
Sure.
I have a lot of fun with words too. And
Yep.
I love learning new words. And each I'm on a weekly radio show for veterans, and
Mm.
myself and
Hmm.
the co-host, we always close it out where I toss out a word of the day.
Hmm.
And I always say, okay, folks, this is your word of the day. Go out and use it wisely.
Hmm.
And so every week I try and find the most random, obscure word
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do that. And I've been doing that for, I don't know, I think about 12, 13 years we've been doing that. So I'm like, boy,
Hmm.
I should have kept a list of every weekly word
Yeah.
over the years, and I never thought to do it. But one word that I've found that has stuck with me, and I love it, and I actually wrote an article about it, is the word Scytherism
Scytherism, spelt with an S or a C?
with a P.
Sister. Okay, with a silent
It's
P,
like
a Greek.
pussyther if you were to
Yeah.
say it phonetically with a p, but it's Scytherism, Phy. Yeah, Psy,
PSY. Yeah.
Scytherism,
Yeah.
and it means the sound the wind makes as it's blowing through leaves.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So,
Yeah.
that the
Yeah.
way the leaves rustle, that noise,
Yeah. Nice.
that's Scytherism.
Yeah.
And when I learned that and read what it meant, I thought to myself, that is one of the most peaceful,
Hmm.
gentle words.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was like you could, and so now every time I'm walking my dog, because I live in the country. So every time I'm walking the dog or
Mhm.
something and you hear
Mhm.
the leaves up there just dancing,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
just kind of stop and look up and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
Scytherism.
Yeah. And when the wind comes and the leaves blow around in a circle, one thing I like about that is there's an Irish tradition that is a spirit. It's called the hosting of the she being their Gaelic name for some sort of spirit or thing like that. And that it's actually, some sort of entity which is moving those leaves around, which is kind of beautiful too.
That is, because
I
I've always thought that that was so awesome to see.
Yeah. Yeah,
Especially,
those
in the fall here, because I experience all four seasons where I live, and you often see that
yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I always, it just stops me. I'm like, that is so cool. Is
Yep.
there a word for that?
Well, on our farm, when we would see those little things out in the fields, not with leaves, but the dust, we called them dust devils.
Right.
Little tiny tornadoes in a way, I guess. But I don't know of any other,
Yeah, for
what we
leaves
call
that do that.
tornadoes,
Huh.
other places called cyclones or typhoons.
I just called
Yeah,
them little leaf tornadoes.
yeah, leaf tornadoes. Yeah,
You know, I
leaf
made up my own
leafados,
thing.
triados.
Yeah,
And
triados. There we go.
another word. I mean, you mentioned your work, the radio show that you do with veterans. I'll give you an example of a word that I like that has to do with the military, and it's the word infantry. It's
Hmm.
got a really interesting origin because it goes way back, I don't know, 400 years to a Spanish princess, and she was known as the Infanta, um, and that was because she was not supposed to speak. I don't know why, because Infanta in Latin or infantis means speechless, right? That also became the word infant because infants don't speak; they haven't learned how to speak yet. And in the infantry, when you join the infantry, what are you not allowed to do? Talk. You're not allowed to speak unless you're spoken to, right? So you're supposed to be silent. So I love how those words, like you never
That is
would have thought
fascinating.
that infantry and infant are connected, but they
Or
are.
that it came from because
A
of a Spanish
Spanish source.
princess.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
That is
yeah.
awesome.
It's like discovering a long lost relative or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How fascinating.
yeah,
How fascinating. Well, time has flown.
yeah,
Time has flown because we're just about out of time here, sir.
yeah.
By golly, there's a lot of, I see now I have all these words floating in my head. I'm like, oh, what's the origin for that? What's the origin for that?
Well, you can email me and ask me.
Yeah, I'll send you my list. No, I won't do that to you. So, as we close out
Yep.
this episode of Let Fear Bounce, let folks know where they can find you, all of your books, all that good stuff.
Sure. Well, probably the easiest. I've got a website. It's www dot Mark Morton. So my name MarkMorton .ca because I'm in Canada. So it's .ca, not .com. I'll mention one other funny thing about my last name is Morton, and every once in a while, people will email me or I'll even get a letter, and they'll forget to put the T in Morton, and it's a really important letter because otherwise it's Dear Dr. Moron.
More,
So I assume it's an accident, but maybe it isn't.
you want to think it's an accident. Could you imagine if that was your last name,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Dr. Moron?
Yep. Yep.
And anyone out there whose last name is Moron, I'm sorry.
I know somebody whose last name is Morin, like a French Morin.
Oh, there you
Yeah.
go.
And moron means dull. So an oxy means sharp. So an oxymoron is literally a sharp dull. So the word oxymoron is an oxymoron.
And I was just going to say, it just kind of explains itself.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Now, I ask all of my guests as we round out the show to please toss out a nugget of hope. And you've tossed out a couple actually while we
Yeah.
were chatting. But if you would please close out our show, tossing out a nugget of hope for the listeners, something that they can tuck away and carry with them.
Well, how about this? It's not quite a nugget, but it's a thing. And I'm talking about dogs because our family has always had dogs. We have 4 dogs right now. 2 of them are in this room with me. And when we were raising our kids, after we adopted them, the dogs, when I talk about this, I almost start to cry because the dogs were so um, integral for the kids because it was like each one of our kids could adopt a dog, and the dog's love is, boundless.
Hmm.
And so our dogs have such a role, and the dogs we had when we first adopted the kids, they've passed away, of course. They all get to about age 14, unfortunately, and they die. But I have such a sense of gratitude for them, and I think dogs are really important to who we are as humans. And I think anybody who has the opportunity to have a dog, to the privilege of looking after a dog, or can go over to a friend or neighbor who has a dog and just pet it and look into its eyes for a while, that is very restorative. Yeah.
I agree.
Yep.
As a veteran who lives with PTSD, my
Hmm.
dog is Any dog I've had actually
Yep.
has been a big part of being able to settle an unsettled
Sure.
soul.
Yep. Yep. They really
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't picture my life without a dog.
Me neither. Yeah. Yeah.
So you have 4 dogs, right?
Yep.
What
Yep.
are their names?
Layla, Maya, Jasper, and Maya. Or did I say
Wonderful.
Maya twice?
You did say Maya twice.
Okay. Who did I forget then?
I thought maybe you had 2
Um,
Mayas.
no, no, we don't have two Mayas. Eccles. Yeah.
Eccles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lovely. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I love dogs. Dogs and coffee.
Yep. Yep. Hard to
Life doesn't
beat.
get any better than that. Dogs and coffee. Well, Mark, thank you so much for being my guest. This has been a
Thank
true
you.
pleasure. It's been a pleasure to have you on and learn all kinds of new things. You did toss out quite a few nuggets, and I appreciate that. So
Oh,
thank you so
good.
much
Good.
for your time
Well,
today.
thank
It's
you.
been a blessing.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Everybody out there listening, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Let Fear Bounce. Each Wednesday, folks, new episodes are uploaded on your favorite listening platforms or on YouTube. You can watch it live in our beautiful faces here so you can see us in person. But thank you for spending your precious time with us today. Everybody out there, be well, stay well, and above all, be blessed.
Kindness. It's simple, powerful, and free. Yet, it holds the extraordinary ability to change someone's day or even their life. Order your copy of Nuggets of Hope, Cultivate Kindness on Amazon.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let Fear Bounce. New episodes drop each week, folks, on YouTube and Spotify and most listening platforms. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and do all the things. If you're craving more nuggets of hope or heartwarming animal stories, and let's face it, folks, who isn't? You can check out my books on Amazon. Don't forget to swing by my website to get in touch and keep up with all that's going on within my realm. So until next time, folks, take a deep breath, be kind to yourself, and as always, let fear bounce.